what I'm going to do is moderate this panel, Innovations in the Urban Water Workforce, a review of good practices. And I'm going to introduce each of our speakers very briefly as they speak. And then they've already got prepared some thoughts and reflections on this topic. And then afterwards, we'll put it up to Q&A and any follow-up questions. So first of all, I'm going to invite Mr. Vinod Singh, who's Senior Director, Water, Jacobs Asia, and also Vice President of the Singapore Water Association. We met recently at the World Bank meeting and had a really great conversation there too, so I look forward to your presentation and thoughts.
Good afternoon. And I think we had a very good discussion in the before lunch. And I was intrigued by some of the questions, thoughts, and also provoked something. So I have put together my thoughts. Again, this is thoughts from my anecdotal experience, discussion with the people, and also from field. It is all random thoughts, and this is not very structured, but it's thoughts which will kind of provoke us for think about how the water sector, what are the trends, challenges, trends, innovation in the industry, what needed to be required and urgent, water policy, finance and management, what needs to be looked at, digital water, which is getting momentum actually, and which is irrespective of the size of the cities, economy, and their maturity level. And anecdotal story, how the jobs have been eliminated in my career in the last 25 years. I will talk about that actually. This is the water challenges. We talk about too much, too little, and too dirty or too polluted. But mega trend, global mega trend, and which is true for the many cities in the region, in all over the world, and including Singapore. Singapore has got a few added the trend. But climate crisis, demographic social challenge, changes, population shift and rapid urbanization and environmental protection, and that result into this water challenges. I'll talk about decarbonization, drought and flood risk, water scarcity, resiliency, which is getting required or getting momentum, capital constraint, we have too much to do, too little money, aging workforce, which is true for Singapore and many others. Emerging contaminants, we talk about PFAS, the endocrine disruptors, the personal cares in the system, contaminants, aging infrastructure, and regulatory compliance. So these are the water challenges. But again, there is a overlaid by the developing countries specific challenge. We talk about longevity of the leaders and the capacity. So in many countries, leaders are there for election to election, 3 years, 5 years. And but water infrastructure is 10, 15, 20 years. It's a long gestation period. It doesn't match, doesn't overlaps, and then your decisions is kind of marred by the politics. Multi and the complex stakeholders. The stakeholders, they don't know what their functions are. Actually, they are contradiction many times. Procurement approval process, which is other way of saying the lack of transparency, and those has a big impact on the last mile of delivery of those or some of the water projects. And the water is a highly undervalued commodity in many of this country in the region. And there are many reasons for it, but this is a fact. Yeah. So what is a new paradigm for water infrastructure? Again, all over the place, we want to reduce our energy consumption, chemical, reliance on manpower, gas, waste generation, and the carbon footprint. And what we want to do is we want to improve our water quality, because everybody is required good water quality, drink from the tap without falling ill, and increase the water resources to meet the ever increasing demand from the municipality and also from the industry as well. And so in that sense, what is the trend? I mean, the trends, 4 or 5 mega trend, but these are the real trend which come from the policy, from the technology, from the manpower perspective, and from the field actually, if you see that. System thinking. Now the people are looking at how do we, we talked about in the first panel as well, system thinking, how do we think at the system level? Not only from the policy perspective, but policy, governance, and stakeholder, all this together as a system. Right? Increasing need for resiliency planning and increasing need for the water resiliency. The cities are looking at water resiliency because that is going to impact attracting the talent, attracting the FDIs, attracting the industry. So how do you increase the water resiliency? Singapore is a great example. We spend huge amount of money, energy, and effort to build a water resiliency, basically to continue to have our reputation and attracting our FDIs and the industries and jobs. Climate change impact, it has got impact on the sea level rise, temperature and drought, and what this needs impact on the water sector is adaptive design and the nature-based solutions. Energy reduction, water sector constitute about 4 to 5 to 6% of the city's energy needs. And also, it has a 30 to 45% of its the cost, operational cost. So there is a huge drive there for all the utilities to reduce the energy consumption, of course, to drive down the cost, but also to drive down the carbon as well. Increasing pressure for decarbonizations, which is operational carbonization, not about the scope 1, but which is the carbon and N2O as well. Water treatment, wastewater treatment, we always talk about wastewater treatment, sewage treatment. We now, I think, looking at water recovery plants, which is a recovery of the water, energy, and the nutrients. And that will help many utilities to have a self-sufficient in the water, energy needs, and also create other revenue stream as well. So the water reclamation plant or water resources recovery plants. Increasing play for water, energy, food, environment nexus. I mean, to us in Singapore, in a large mega project, is a great example of how is the water and waste play the energy, food, and water nexus. Actually, food nexus will come in maybe new Kranji, which is another node. But again, water and waste nexus is playing very well there, and this is gaining momentum as well. How do we kind of find the synergy and enhance the benefits for the same cost? Again, other one is in the middle one is a more social, and the soft side, social expectations, increasing aspirations from the users, particularly digital natives. I mean, the last 15, 20 years, the people, they have been buying, the trend is to buy the things on the Amazon, get the instant gratification, and that's why they are going to look from the utilities to instant gratification. They don't want to wait for 3 days to solve their issues, right, legal issues. So how do you do that? And this is a great example to convince politicians to bring them into our fold and skin the game. To, if they don't want to lose the votes, they have to support some of those changes in the water sector as well. Yeah. Increasing difficulty in attracting the right talent. We talked about a lot on that. Increasing competition from other sectors. Need for food resiliency and risk management, which is was very good example during the COVID. The food and the food resiliency also depend on the water as well. Flood and drought insurance, this is a good topic because we have been talking about the water utilities. They're going to be a big job, large number of jobs as well in the insurance sector, where the urban flood and also the crops management and the irrigation or the insurance for the drought or the flood. There are going to be a huge market for that, and that to support that in terms of prediction, in terms of mathematical modeling, you require a water engineers using the AI or whatever, but supporting those insurance people. Water is highly undervalued commodity. Then there's a change and change towards finding the right mix of the funding from the private sector, blended finance, green bond, few others. On the technical side, the third one, on the very technology side, is that treatment technology, membrane, low pressure energy, desalination, waste to energy, biosolids, those are becoming the trend now. And in fact, this is, I was told MABR, which is the latest MBR technology. The largest MABR was sold in China in the rural area because they found it's much better to use those rather than using the simple technology. So idea is to learn and leapfrog for the technology which has been adopted elsewhere. Digitalization, we'll talk further on that. Emerging contaminants. Zero liquid discharge for industry, it is becoming a very common now because regulators are putting a pressure for them to not to discharge any waste outside of the battery limit. So zero liquid discharge is becoming quite popular. scale and the complex of the water infrastructure compared to the 20 years back or 40 years back is becoming a more complex, more the large, and that's require a different set of the skill set, different set of the leaders. And the last one is the sweating the assets. How people are looking at how do we stretch our assets, what we have created for the getting more out of out of this. How much time I have left now?
I will tell you. My viewers, you have 5.5 minutes left.
Right. So these are the most needed innovations. So I will talk about in the 3 innovation. What we require more is low energy desalination, which PUB is trying to do to bring the desalination energy from 3.5 to 2 kilowatt hour. And if you bring to 2 kilowatt hour, that will change the which is a game changer actually. Brine concentration solutions, which come from the RO membrane. We have a very difficulty. I mean, Singapore is okay because we are the coastal, but in the inland, it's become a very, very difficult to treat and discharge that. And the low energy and sustainable zero liquid discharge. Second, I'm talking about the better understanding and design, better understanding on the design for the nature-based solutions. At the moment, nature-based solutions, we do not understand fully how it behaves with the changing environment. I mean, we know how concrete is going to behave, how the steel is going to behave, but the nature-based solutions, and that's requires some more innovation in that. And the last one is innovative financing. If you do not have a financing, whatever we talk about technology, policies, is not going to be delivered what we are looking for. So financing is must, and then we need to work on that innovative financing as well. I'll leave this one. Okay, I'll talk about, how do I go back? Yeah, so I'll just talk about this, the green one. I used to say that, water is not only feel the impact of the climate change, but I always believe that water is also contributed to the climate change. And we will fail on the climate change if we fail on water. And also we need to see that our policies on the climate change, on the renewable and other things, should not lead to the more use of the water, the scarce water resources. And like solar panels, we are talking about solar panel, but solar panel, production, it requires a huge amount of water. Similarly, a lithium battery, it requires a huge amount of water. So you should not solve one issues and kind of create challenges for others, other sector. And so one thing is that, we talk about what is gaining momentum, is that digital is gaining momentum irrespective of the size of the utilities, irrespective where it's a developed country or developing country, irrespective of the maturity of the utilities. Of course, different scale, different size, and different level. The people are kind of trying to use a digital in the game. And actually this is we are not we are playing another fourth layer, we call it, which is the layer on the data management and the this analytic layer rather than the SCADA. And this will also also address our increasing requirement in terms of infrastructure, decreasing the finance. So this will, digital will help us to plug that gap. And this is a Singapore PUB. I mean, this was, I think, is maybe 2-3 years old, which was created in a smart PUB roadmap in the public domain. This is, again, all across the water cycle. It's not only at one point, but all across the water cycle is on how digital technology can be used to find the efficiency. And this is a digital project delivery, which we have been working in Singapore with the TUAS project. And why I'm presenting is that how the work has evolved. So we started with the manual drafting. We came to the AutoCAD or the CAD drawing, and now we are using this BIM, which is a 5D and 6D. So in the whole the job the skill set requirement change a lot. Here we are using the 6D BIM. Not only it's give you the enough resolution in terms of the interference during the construction stage, but the data which is created will be used throughout the life cycle of project for the operation maintenance. Again, the skill set has changed, jobs have been eliminated, but new jobs have been created, which has created more efficiency in the project cycle and the sector as well. So this is some of the work which the people can see that whole design in the VR. Another smart metering. Smart metering is again some of the benefits. That the benefit is that you don't need a water meter reader, but you can use this meter readers to use it for value-added activities. I'll talk about this last slide. This is when I was a young engineers, the personal computer was becoming very popular. I was designing a wastewater sewerage system. I used to do using the Excel spreadsheet. Somebody came and taught me a macro. And I started using macro, and that has changed 20% or maybe 50% my productivity. So when I used to design it, there was a team who was doing the quantity surveying. And they were supposed to quantity surveying the gurus. And they used to do from the drawing, they used to measure the quantities. I said, okay, I use an Excel spreadsheet to develop the quantity surveying, and their jobs were eliminated. So the 3 people in the project, within the 3 months, the jobs were eliminated. But of course, we taught them and reskilled them. So some of the things like Dragonfly, last one, is that in the sewers, we put the CCTV, and we kind of identify that the cracks, and people sometimes have to go inside. And thus we have eliminated it using the CCTV and the AI, and this can identify itself where the cracks are, and you can go and plug that hole. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, and I'm so sorry for being so draconian on the time, because we could have heard more of this really great in-depth analysis, so thank you so much for this. And likewise, please read the bios of our speakers. I'm not going to read them in detail because of our time, but our next speaker is Robin Wong, who is the founder and chief commercial officer of Team Solve, and they're pioneering. They are a pioneering Singapore tech company using generative AI to revolutionize operations workforce in the water sector, including here, Australia, Canada, and beyond. Welcome.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm in this prestigious school, and I would say Lee Kuan Yew is my biggest water hero. Yeah. All right. I won't go as fast as you did. Yeah. So I've been taking notes along the way. A quick background of our journey in smart water that has spanned over the past, let's say, 15 to 20 years. Well, we started as Vicente, which was a spin-off from the Smart Campus in Singapore, at NUS actually, the Singapore MIT Alliance. And we partnered with PUB, and we built the smart water grid together at that time. Yeah. And we've seen over time that how this has taken shape and also changed the nature of people's jobs. Yeah, and I would say that during that era, that past era, it was enabled by let's say computing tools and software tools around big data, IoT, cloud computing, chip technologies, cybersecurity, better communication networks. And popularities in AI and machine learning, but more traditional techniques, yeah, linear regressions, clustering, random fields, etc. And then if we fast forward a decade later, and that's where we exited in 2016 to a global water leaders who acquired us. We started Team Solve back in early January, focusing very much on AI and also plugging a lot of those, existing workforce challenges, as well as software gaps when it comes to digital twins, yeah, where it can get a bit complex, inaccessible, and there are gaps as well around, tacit expert knowledge. Yeah. So in this new era, we believe it's going to be powered and enabled by what you have seen out there, GPT, right? It's not just about ChatGPT, but this is a transformational technology, and it's going to power a lot of the solutions that we just talked about in addressing the water systems. Yeah. So very quickly, what we're building over the past 2.5 years is really a pioneering Gen AI powered digital knowledge companion for the urban water workforce. Yeah. And what it does, I mean, we call it Lily. I would think maybe we can call it Taylor Swift, yeah. But there are some that don't want it to be called Lily, actually, and want it to be called something that's more gender agnostic. And what it does, it connects and centralizes all sources of knowledge and data, all right? It learns continuously. It's conversational, which makes it more human-centric and intuitive. And then it powers automation as well, depending on the use case. Yeah. So jumping straight and direct into the questions, which I've also listed out, what do I think is the biggest trend? Yeah. So I think we heard a lot about it. But I think this breakthrough in technology in AI will accelerate the adoption in digital and AI. And the impact is going to be far-reaching across all stakeholders. And that will include, consultants which are using AI to generate coastal protection designs, what we just heard about digital project delivery, stakeholders in O&M, contractors, they are using it already, I would say, for corrective maintenance. And then customer service as well as solution providers, everyone's overlaying, dashboards with a layer of AI. And it's going to be applicable to utilities of all sizes, small or large, developing or developed. And you'll see the developing utilities leapfrog in performance, empowered by AI. Some of the macro drivers, I mean, we read the news, 1 billion was allocated to be invested in AI. Not a small amount in the near 5 years. So 1 billion in our latest budget. And to power AI, Center of Excellences. And AI is not just GPT, it's general purpose technology like electricity and the internet. And then we have, trailblazing utilities like PUB that's, driving and doubling down on digital and also, empowering their workforce with AI tools that's going to be more human-centric. And we have Skills Future coming out, CEO talking about, experiential stuff. And the potential for tradesmen like plumbers to even tap onto generative AI technologies. So there's great opportunity, and at TeamSolve, we see that it can help address workforce challenges, and which is already a crisis in the making. If you look at Singapore as a super-aged economy, 1 out of 5 or 4 is going to be above 60, and it's aging 1.5 times faster, and we have 50% of experienced staff at least retiring in the next 10 years. Unfilled jobs, my estimation is around 20% in the water sector with weak attraction and very high turnover. And 2 out of 5, a survey across the sector was saying, hey, they want to switch jobs in the next 6 months, not just the next 5 years. And with new attitudes around hybrid, flexible workforce and digitally savvy and natives, especially the Gen Z. And all these quotes were from articles and research that we did. The workforce, needs to fight climate drought, and it's a system that is run by people. And we heard that a lot today, system thinking. In our company, before we was embarking on the product development, we also did a validation on the market. And what's the main underlying problem around all these workforce challenges? And we believe it's total operational knowledge, which is, at risk. And that is both tacit knowledge, which is, expert knowledge, field knowledge, insights, as well as explicit knowledge, documents, manuals, dashboards, SOPs. And all of them are finding it very cumbersome and slow in getting access to this knowledge, which is at risk. And majority want insights here. And all these quotes you can read for yourself. Knowledge not shared, feedback loop is not working in a systemic way. We don't have the ability to share knowledge. And that's where we came up with the company's value proposition, and around this pain point that this gap in the knowledge, this weakness in the knowledge is causing billions of dollars, right? Due to inefficiencies, lack of productivity, mismanaged responses, mistakes, customer complaints, you name it, We have incidents in Singapore with MRT flooding because an operator didn't switch it from manual to auto after fixing it. And we see it all the time, all right? And we have leaks happening out in the field, not in Singapore, but I've seen leaks that keep running because the shut-off valve location is only known by a particular staff that is no longer with the company. So the most pressing needs can be solved, I would say, if we accelerate the adoption of digital water and robust AI for operational usage, especially in water that is, mission critical. All right. So it needs to be accurate, trusted, explainable, ethical, integrated, and it's going to be solving a lot of these pertinent issues, not just in developing countries, but recently you see in Wellington, 50% of water is lost due to aging pipes. It can happen to us in Singapore as well. So, all these can be better addressed when you have a strong digital enabled workforce here. Some of the innovations outside of tech, I would say, would be to appoint a point person, for digital transformation and AI that can, be accountable and bring good judgment in prioritizing the applications. Innovative financial models around data as a service, OPEX-driven and performance-based with penalties improves accountability and uptime, and also improves the balance sheet, right? And making it more asset-like, like what I heard today. And leapfrogging, all right? Rather than lengthy trials, long sales cycles, we've seen many examples of less developed utilities leapfrogging in a risk-averse water sector. So what's happening out there that's gaining momentum? Gen AI is top of the hype cycle. So it's powered by deep neural networks with the transformer model. We have been doing numerous trials across Southeast Asia, in the Philippines, not with the big concessionaires, but with smaller ones, which we want to help them to leapfrog. We are piloting in Malaysia, we are piloting in Australia, Singapore, and also in New Zealand. And the lack of digital maturity is not going to be a hindrance, because there's an opportunity to leapfrog. So an example from Queensland, I'll show this just very timely, a real usage of a co-pilot for troubleshooting for a performance-based contract in the city of Gold Coast, where they are struggling with knowledge gaps, workforce shortages, as well as new staff joining them.
For us as a business, we've seen some significant changes in the way that utilities operate their water networks in the last few years. The ability to maintain, install these particular type of devices is proven to be a bit of a challenge. So for us, we were looking for a platform to allow them to make better decisions whilst on site. We partnered with a company called TeamSolve, and TeamSolve have a very sophisticated application called Hey Lily. Hey Lily is a platform that allows us to have almost a virtual network operator, a virtual assistant in the field. And the information that was able to be provided to our field teams, we felt was a significant step forward.
I can tell Lily the site that I'm going to, and Lily will give me a site orientation, including a picture, so that when I'm going out to site, I know what I'm looking for. So I can tell Lily the site's offline, and I can ask for advice on what to do based on the site history. And I can even zoom in on the last visit that the maintenance crew did to give me some help on what happened last time and what I might need to do this time. So when we're on site, I can ask Lily for some help on any of the maintenance steps, doing a logger swap, configuring the logger. If we need to replace a battery, I can ask Lily to step me through the process to help me swap out the battery and get the logger working again.
The use of the application has provided us with better insights into the operation and application of a number of our sensor networks. The ability for the Lily platform to provide standardized SOPs, standardized troubleshooting, training, and constant education for our field teams is a significant step forward for us as a business. And that step forward for us moves us as a business further up the scale in terms of being a technical services provider, and certainly provides a lot of consistency for how our teams operate in the field and confidence in the application of our teams to make sure that the devices are fit for purpose. Now we are more informed, we can make better decisions in terms of pricing, we make better decisions in terms of product selection, and for us to be far more effective as a business in terms of maintenance and response.
So I use just the final 30 seconds to a minute to wrap up on how institutions can prepare better. Firstly, with a thorough understanding. You really need to understand the technology, assess the risks, think of whether the tech is going to be an antibiotic, a painkiller, or a vitamin, whether you want it to be a co-pilot or autopilot, manage those risks, confidence, and consequences. Experiential culture, PUB does a great job with the sandboxing, learning fast, fail safe in narrow cases, and referring to some of the great resources out there like the AI, SG, Verify, some of those model governance frameworks for governance and testing. Top-down, bottom-up, holistic approach in your engagement is necessary. Visionaries at the top need believers and buy-in. Change management with real care for the staff well-being, not just telling them, hey, do it more productivity and and then I replace you and make you do more. But incentivize them and really give them better work-life balance. That really helps to build trust, the feedback loop. Human centricity and adoption over ROI. So you won't have all the answers at the beginning. So just go and try and focus on the human, handhold them, and focus on the lowest denominator or the weakest link here in your organization. Lifelong learning, I think that overcomes fear, improves resilience, as well as trust in the organization. Deep skilling with the AI tools is foundational. And then soft people skills. And then the final slide, AI is for everyone. It's not good to know. It's a must know to address the challenges of tomorrow. Attract new talents, Gen Z, war for talent. Salaries are still important, but also meaning and purpose and stability. Role modeling, great role models, Pep Guardiola, Lee Kuan Yew, do more of that. And finally, focus on people and human skills around change, coaching, creativity, all the C's you can see. I started with 8 C's, but I have 15 C's now. So thanks for that.
Thank you. And 12 seconds under the time. So
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Most welcome.
Yeah, great. Again, I'm going to be fast to give time for our speakers. Our next speaker is Ms. Wang Shanchan, who is leading Aroop's water business in Singapore, Indonesia, and Malaysia. And I did want to highlight just briefly that as part of her CV, she's known as working on large-scale infrastructure works across Asia and is recognized for successful multidisciplinary project management. And my hypothesis is that's because she's got a master's degree from Cambridge in environmental policy, which to do that degree well, you have to have those skills. So with that, welcome.
Thank you. Yes, so that's quite a random CV, I would say, from a lot of the different perspectives. And I understand that Arab is probably not a well-known name in Singapore in the water sector. So the first slide, I'm just giving you some of the video that you can see that what exactly is Arab doing. Basically, as I mentioned, also reflected in my CV, that Arab is doing a lot of the infrastructure works. So what we do on a daily basis and for the majority of our revenue income is from the infrastructure projects where we help to design those works. But also less well known and not reflected in this video is that we also do some sort of like maybe strategic thinking with some organizations. For example, we help DC Water in the United States from our London team to help them map out their strategic ESG reporting and also how they're going to plan for their future workforces. So those are some of the works that we do beyond just infrastructure. And then, of course, then as you can see here, we're also doing some of the community engagement works. And I'm also leading the community engagement activities for Arab Singapore. And a lot of the time when the NGO partners come to me, they don't come for me for water, but a lot of the time the problems that they're facing is related to wash, which is definitely a very important issue across Southeast Asia. And so for us, I think that rather than talking to you about the macro trend that you have read a lot in the news, I would like to share a bit about how we, as an organization, when we need to help our clients to think about their problems, think about their design, how do we actually try to upskill for the future uncertainties? How do we upskill our own staff? So I also got another internal title for being the SDG champion for the Water Skills Network. Water Skills Network is a global network that we have for us to share our knowledge across the different offices and disciplines. And for water, what we did is that we have this global water link every 2 years. That is before the COVID time. So after COVID, this is actually the first time that we resumed this activity. So last year in November, I was lucky enough to be one of those participants in Dublin. And we visited Guinness, of course. When you're in Dublin, what else to do, right? But also, we discussed about how we would like to reskill our water staff. And so the key things that we are discussing are what is changing in our industry. So what is the water futures and what are the things that are emerging? And also for us, importantly, as a skills network, now what for us? What do we want to plan for upskilling our staff in order to prepare such uncertainties and challenges? And what we start with is to identify and ask us about the future in 2050. What are some of the high impact and high uncertain factors that are challenging the world, challenging our clients? Because in order to help our clients to answer those questions, we will also need to prepare our staff to know more about them. So these are some of the examples. Of course, we have a long list, but for example, things like political and environmental challenges related to climate and conflict, technological related to AI, of course, and economic, because we see that in the future, Singapore always know about that, about the water economy and the resource sovereignty, but this is not that well aware in some of the other countries, and social demographic changes, the population and urbanization. After identifying some of those factors, then the questions that we are asking is that how do we want to map our own transition towards the 2050 ambition? So we are using this diagram that you are seeing here. We ask ourselves, going into 2050 is great, but we're not Singapore government. We're not doing that kind of long-term planning. What we're asking ourselves is just maybe from now to 2030, what are some of the things that we could think about, and what are some of the changes that we're going to see as a scale or the dominance of the patterns that we'll be observing? And we think that there are definitely some things that we think are current, very prominent currently, but then they're going to die down at the time of 2030. For example, things like fossil fuels, etc. Then by 2030, at least we hope that they will be less dominant compared with now. And then the other things are something that is right now only a dissenting ideas about the future. Probably something, for example, like a year ago, no one was thinking about generative AI. And then, so these are, and people talk about big data and machine learning and deep learning, that kind of the concepts, but that's it. So there are some dissenting ideas right now that will affect the future. But what is more likely to happen is just that no one is perfect in predicting the future. So the reality is more likely to be something in between. So we're trying to think about it so that we start with what is our ambition and vision as a firm, where do we want to go to? So where are we in terms of the current situation? And for the things that are going to kill, what do we want to kill? For example, not specifically related to water, but of course when we're seeing that there will be less things related to fossil fuels. Right now our company policy is already that we are not doing any works related to fossil fuels. And in order to prepare ourselves for the future or for our ambition and vision, what do we want to start? And then in this process, what do we want to overcome? So these are the questions that we discuss among the groups and with representations from different regions across the world. We discuss those kind of questions and ask ourselves so that we will be able to map out a better plan for us to upskilling ourselves. So, of course, not everything that we discussed during that time is relevant to everyone here because we are consulting company and also not particularly relevant to this to external scenarios, but some of the things that I would like to share is that, for example, some of the things that we discuss is that we definitely see an importance of reaching out for cross-sector conversations and innovation more proactively. For example, I selected the two pictures on the right-hand side. One is representing something related to nature and something is more related to energy. Of course, then these days, energy, water, resources, health, this kind of the nexus discussion is quite prominent, especially in Singapore, but how many water engineers can confidently say that we are able to hold this kind of the discussion, and also in terms of the digital, how many of us are confident that we can really hold this kind of the cross-sector conversations and innovation? So for that, we do need to prepare our staff. Not all water engineers need to be an engineer, need to be an energy specialist in the future as well. But at least we need to hold those intelligent discussions so that we can prepare to design and come up with better solutions. And also, like in the past 5 years already, digitalization has already been an opportunity to harmonize our approach and standards across countries, especially for us when we're operating in, I think currently we're having like 60 offices around the world or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. But when we're having the different approaches and standards across the countries, but at the same time, we think that, for example, as sanitation and the potable drinking water standards, those should be basic human rights. And so you do need to think about what are the approaches and standards we do want to be more standardized across the entire world. So digitalization is actually an opportunity without asking, for example, the UK colleagues to work on Indonesia projects. But we do want a digital ways for us to more efficiently being able to help us to transfer the knowledge from the developed countries to the developing countries. And also, because of climate change, which we have discussed a lot in the past hour or so, we see that there are more disasters coming up, unfortunately. So modularity and some rapid pop-up solutions in order to prepare for disaster responses would definitely be necessary. So those are some of the things that we have discussed. And in terms of what we hope to see more from the consultant perspective is that we're hoping that the government agencies could be also more organized to respond to some of the cross-sector innovations. Singapore, of course, then again is leading that, and then we'll be able to hold some of the nexus discussion. But not all the government agencies are capable of doing that. When you're telling them and discussing them, for example, even for reusing some of the sludge for waste to energy, and then some government don't think that it's in their remit to discuss that topic. So the government agencies do need to be able to organize themselves in order to stimulate those cross-sector innovation. And of course, for us, startups are the people that we also would like to reach out to. Over the past few years, I believe that a lot of the consultants like us was trying to build a lot of the digital capabilities in-house. While we have made some success, but at the same time, we do recognize that startups, because the way that they're organizing themselves, they actually have a natural advantage to capture some of those innovation opportunities. For us, we're not trying to reinvent ourselves into a startups, but maybe we could think about a more innovative approach of working with those startups so that we could pursue some of the opportunities in a more collaborative manner. So yeah, those would be my key two takeaways. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Yeah, wonderful. And look forward to coming back to some questions about that kind of important set of observations around integration and technology and the social challenges as well. Our fourth speaker now is Dr. Yugo Joshi, also a wonderful bio and background. I would say that he is an alumnus of many universities, including our very school right here. So we're pretty excited to have him speak, including for that reason, and has got experience in not just water, but railways, communication, sanitation, and water. So you're in the cross-sector effort in practice. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. First of all, big thanks to Corinne, Ben, and Cecilia in absentia for inviting me here. After listening to the gurus from the private sector, I will be trying to present government perspective on this. India, as you know, we are big country, fortunately or unfortunately, huge population. So here I will try to put urban workforce sector in perspective of rural, in the entire perspective of the country. In India, recently urbanization and migration from the rural areas to urban areas has grown big way, and roughly 36% of India lives in the cities. And we have 4,902 cities, big towns or cities, in addition to some peri-urban areas and other places which are, in the neighborhood of the rural areas. So this first I would like to talk about, and in India one more thing is that the water sector is the monopoly of the government, whether from the center level, state, districts, municipalities, everywhere government is doing that, sometimes in the partnership as well. So even after 70 years of independence, in 2019, roughly the tap water coverage in rural India was only 17 to 18%. So out of 230 million households, at that time roughly 192 million households, they were getting, 19 million, they were 32 million only were getting tap water supply. In last 4 or 5 years, lot of investment was done, roughly 42 to 45 billion US dollars. And as a result, in last 4 years, roughly 100 million households have been provided with tap water supply. Now, in the last discussion also there was a question of people's partnership and other things. In India, we thought after 70 years of experience that the PHED, the Public Health Engineering Department, whether it is climate change or not, we have to take water sector as a holistic sector. And not only the environment, but asset management and many other things, including communication becomes a big thing. So we decided that we will be giving the ownership of water management to villagers, to the panchayat. In India, the system is that there is a union of states, India. So there are 36 states divided into districts, roughly 700 districts. Then many blocks, then each block has 5 or 6 panchayats or 10 panchayats. Then there are villages under that. So it's a kind of very complex system. Then we thought that if we can give ownership of those water utilities, local water utilities to villages, we can, how they will perform. So PHED's role was to take the water supply system to the villages, and villages were supposed to manage not only the water resources, but also supply and distribution chain, as well as treatment of used water. So the entire loop. So far, out of roughly, how many? There are roughly 700,000 villages. So in those 700,000 villages, we thought that, and roughly panchayats, a cluster of villages, roughly 250,000. So we make village water and sanitation committees. 50% member were women, and we thought that each and every village utility, if there are 5 women who are in charge of testing water quality through field test kits and others, and there are 5 persons each, one plumber, mason, electrician, if we can have in each and every village, then we can give the ownership to that village water and sanitation committee. So this map here, if you can click any, this is very wonderful dashboard. It shows not only the situation of India, how many houses have been provided tap water supply, but it goes deeper down to the states, further down to the districts, then further down to the blocks, then further down to the each and every village. So that in real time basis, you can see in a particular village, how many households are there, different categories of those households, and the owner of this household, and also whether they are getting water and how much quantity of water they are getting. This all is in public domain. So any particular person A living in a village can see how much water he is getting, what is the quality of that water. So we are using IoT based systems and others to check these quality. It is not available everywhere, but most of those villages are now under this dashboard. this is a big tool for any researcher. So this also maps, the water quality, provision of tap water supply in schools, hospitals, and the village panchayat levels and others. So at a click now, sitting in Delhi, I can see that what X or Y Z village in the India is getting water supply or not. Unfortunately, when I compare this situation with the urban water supply, it's a totally fragmented one. If I want to know even what is happening in Delhi, I cannot tell you, how much water Delhi Jal Board is taking and where that water is going. So now, recently we have started to do work with the urban water utilities as well. Recently, in fact, it will be launched March this year. So we are trying to do, in fact, in the morning there was discussion about, how much is the workforce in Australia and other places. So in India, though, in recent years, since the launch of this mission is called Jal Jeevan Mission, that is a water is life mission. So after this, we had roughly 1.1 million people working in the water sector, both organized as well as unorganized. But in last 4-5 years, there has been almost 30% growth in that. And mind you, like everybody, this alpha generation doesn't come to water sector very easily, but they are joining as consultants to these different utilities, joining other consultancy firms. Now we are collaborating a lot with big KPMGs and others in water sector. But recently there have been a trend that in all Indian water utilities, we are taking young people who are fresh graduates or who has done their PhDs or higher studies in water sector as young fellows, consultants in all other water utilities. Unfortunately, it still is a very much government dominated, and things become complicated because unlike this rural part, which is somehow centralized because some state government official is taking charge of that, these urban water supplies, those 4,902, they are basically governed or led by some bureaucrats, and their terms are not fixed. 2 or 3 years they get transferred. So we are trying to put a system, and in fact the new guidelines which have recently published by Government of India say that roughly they have divided, like India, there are population variations. So one model doesn't fit all. So depending on the population, there have been standardized some kind of benchmark setting, how many people we should be there. For example, roughly if I say about a big city of more than 5 million population, roughly it prescribes that 3,300 or 3,400 workforce should be there. When I was comparing Australian data and Singaporean PUB data, I think that's sufficient, provided we get that many people. Now, incentivization and decentralization is a big thing. Incentivization, Government of India, biggest bane is that all those employees are permanent employees. You cannot throw them out, whether they perform or not. So that's one of the big issues. And sometimes I feel, the older generation, when I go to my village and find out who knows this masoning or plumbing job, I found a retired person, no young person, they are not coming forward because of very poor salary structure and other things. This still is a problem. But now the Government of India's new norms, they have prescribed that not only this core team, which we say that water fencing team of the water department, but there will be definite cells for that. Cells for example, non-renewable water, communication, legal, asset management, these all things, there will be different definite cells led by the experts. So I don't know how it will happen and how much successful it will be, but technology is not a new thing and it's coming. All these developments have been incorporated. Unfortunately, only that municipal leader who is interested in water sector does that. Otherwise, most of the bureaucrats who are term bureaucrats who come and go, they are, if not interested, then that thing has gone. I don't know when we are going to, give it in charge of some private sector. In the lunch discussion, we were thinking that water is a security threat. Unfortunately, it is not, but still we are in a long process to go. One more interesting thing which happened when I was dealing with the sanitation, I led this Clean India movement for 4 years. So at that time we found that, why I am talking again and again about people's participation, because ultimately if people start understanding these values, and in India if women or children basically, if they start, because they are the sufferers. So in sanitation I found that if you give leadership of village level sanitation to women, then they work wonders. Things get changed very fast. For example, I will tell you one thing. So In 1 month, we started a campaign called that You Paint Your Toilets campaign. We said that Prime Minister will award 5 best toilets painted in a function. Funny, na? So, only 1 month in January 2018, we started from 1st January to 31st January. You will wonder that 13.5 million toilets were painted in a month. We put a huge exhibition of those painted toilets, their photographs and other things, and most of the people did it by themselves. There were stories, how women are living. So we are very much firm. I don't know, technical, with all these technical advancement, I don't know how the rural people, though we are big in capacity building, but a rural plumber, mason, how much he understand AIs and these all things. These are pretty much challenges, still challenges. But with the help of the PhD departments and maybe this kind of new consultative cells, maybe we will be trying to overcome these things. Now, one more important thing, whenever we talk about engineering, and sadly in India, it's more about, how you are putting the system in place only, but you are not worrying about water. And India, with this huge population, 16-17% of the globe and only 4% of the fresh water supply availability, we, in last 2-3 years, we have started, these big campaigns based on the people to conserve water, rejuvenation of water. That's why I was asking that question, that in last year alone, we created 70,000 big ponds, more than 1 acre to 10 acre, with a cost of very less. It's roughly 1 million Indian rupees. With the help of the people only, all those panchayat people or the people who were some kind of awardees or retired government officials. So this kind of huge thing we have started making, so that, rainwater harvesting and other thing, and groundwater level, in India, 21 big cities will be running out of their groundwater in 2030. Situation is very bad. So if people can take these things in their hands, at least source rejuvenation, groundwater recharging and other things, with some little capacity building, that is our focus. The most worrisome thing is that if we are providing this much water, and in India we provide 55 liters per capita per day to rural, and 135 liter to urban. I don't know why this is, but this is what this is. So if we are providing to 1.4 billion people this much, and 80% of that comes out as a grey water, and we don't treat that, what will happen to that? So these all are different kind of challenges. Now, since this is a session of success stories, so things are not bad. Recently, last year, there is a town called Puri in eastern part of India. So it is a kind of religious place, population roughly 340,000, something like that. But being a religious place, it normally attracts 20 million people per year. So recently it was declared as India's first 24/7 supply. We are slowly moving from that intermittent mindset to 24/7 mindset, and roughly 20 towns in that state have become 24/7. Again, that has been done with the help of government officials only. Only one important thing. So from where these all, workforce comes. Like in the morning, people discuss about those community or the street people. In India, we are very big. Unfortunately, or fortunately, there is a system of self-help groups, and it's big in India. Every village have 5 or 4 or 10. So normally those volunteers work for, inspection of these leakages, watching over the system, creating awareness and all these things. Now we are planning to incentivize them more. We cannot make them a government permanent employees, but some kind of incentivization, and some, because they are involved in many other schemes as well. So through them, we are thinking that these awareness campaigns we will take forward, and they will be kind of watchmen of our water utility system. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. A minute and a half under. We should give an award for that. We now have a little bit of time for question and answer. I do have a burning question, but I want to open it up first before I ask that question. Are there any questions from the audience right now? Corrine, yes.
Yes, just take the liberty of asking this question. So I think there was quite a bit of discussion on the importance of innovation, right, and the potential of leapfrogging, right? But at the same time, we also in panel 1 talked about the value of long-term planning. So how do we reconcile, the challenges of planning ahead, but at the same time leapfrogging, which means that you need to adapt quickly, right? Are we able to keep a pace with the speed of innovations? I'm thinking about technological innovations. So just wondering about the thoughts of the panelists.
I think this has got a different context as well. For some situation, it will be long-term planning, and for some situation, it will be immediate use, right? And learning the technological advance and experience from the where it has been used, and people can go to the other. I mean, like one of the examples always that like we do a lot of capacity building and awareness program in India, and we use Singapore as example. So many cities and many countries, many towns in India doesn't have to go step 1, 2, 3, 4. What has been done here, they can use it and leapfrog it, right? Like what telephony has done in India. So similarly, they can use immediately the stuff what has been used elsewhere. But Singapore, since not many things which it wants to use, there has to be some long-term planning. And again, long-term planning doesn't have to be only technology, but there are systems, and the large infrastructure. But the technology will come, like the coastal infrastructure in Singapore. We have a long-term planning, but the technology will come as we go along the path of that.
Just wondering about like training people in time as well, right, for these technologies, especially in the developing parts of the world, whether that training could happen as quickly as we would like.
I'll try to answer that. So the capacity building or training has 2-3 different aspects. So if in India, if I am going to teach something new to a 45 plus, very difficult. If I am going to teach something who is below 45 and sees that there are some kind of promotional avenues, he takes very keen interest in that. New people in search of job, they are very much into it. But when somebody comes to a facility which is very keen on these new technologies, which teaches them very new things, and those all trained people go back to their workplace and don't find such kind of environment there, so it becomes difficult. So I think leapfrogging is very good, and India is quite adapt to do this. Still, they are at different levels. The urban utilities, water utilities, they are at different levels. So some kind of different capacity building or training programs are required for them.
If I could also add on that, I think, so for leapfrogging, right, not directly applicable to this case, but I read an article talking about the leapfrogging in Africa, that people is always talking about that maybe a lot of the digital solutions will be able to help Africa leapfrog as an economy. But at the same time, when people are talking about that, they realize that there are still some basic infrastructure that the continent actually need to have, like roads and access to water, for example. So those are the kind of the things that we know that they are still being there. And so as an industry for the overall planning, I believe that there are still things that are more constant. But for the leapfrogging part, like what we do as an organization ourselves is that we recognize that maybe we are not the best ones who are able to capture this leapfrogging opportunities, or just being able to have our own people to leapfrog with the industry. But then in that sense, then how do we collaborate with the startups? Even though as a society as a whole, even though some companies or a particular departments may not be able to capture that leapfrogging, but then there are people who are, for example, just recently graduated from the universities and who are being innovative and working on startups, and they have this kind of the skill set. Then how do you, from the policy perspective, how would you be able to have a framework that will help encourage the collaboration across the sectors? For example, a lot of the time the public tenders are biased towards the traditional players. Then the startups, they are just not being able to bid for some of those projects. And if you do want to encourage those kind of the leapfrog, and for those people for the startups to capture this kind of the opportunity, can you do something more innovative in terms of the procurement strategy? That's something that I was thinking about.
Yeah, great. Well, I'll come in with my question right now, which is a question that came up both in this panel but also last night over dinner. And I've noticed that a lot of the innovations around these jobs, as we're talking about, are around the new technology, computer, AI-generated jobs that can in many ways help empower local people because they now have the knowledge and data to do things on the ground. But I'm also hearing a real big debate about whether to effectively manage water or other resource challenges, this idea of subsidiarity, local is better, is always true. That sometimes you need to have strong central governments and central planning to be effective, and you can't rely on individuals to make those choices. They might not actually provide a collective good in that context. So how do you guys weigh in terms of the innovative potential for jobs and skills in the context of where do we want to go with this innovation in terms of responsible water management? It's for all of you, but I wouldn't mind your thoughts on this question. Local, central, where do we go?
Yes, I'll just give the example from India actually, and he can add on that. India has got this called Jal Shakti department, and they have the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, which are working with them, and they have a massive program they call Amrit 2.0, and under Amrit 2.0 they had I think $40 billion. So as Mr. Yugal has said that India, the water sector is it's a tertiary, many times the tertiary institutions they are responsible for. Only the funding and the planning comes from the central government. Right. So here what they have done is that they have kind of collaborated with the states, the federal government, state government and tertiary government, they're collaborated. Funding goes from the central government to the state government to the tertiary level. But at the same time, the skill sets, innovation, template, and many other things which they think they can bring it, and they push it to the state level and tertiary level. There's a consistency, there's innovations goes into the different set of the people, different context, different, the matrix kind of thing. And also kind of this kind of things they have got where the work has been delivered. So again, it's a kind of the partnership and collaboration for different, different courses for different horses, and those kind of matrix they have taught.
One more thing to add. These policy level decisions are normally done by the center.
Yeah.
So then they percolate down to states and the lower level. The funding mechanism is that, normally for these programs like sanitation or drinking water, Government of India asks states that they will be pooling 60%, 40% a state should pool, something like that. But mostly, in my experience, if there are both the governments are from the same party, then politics kicks in. Then it's easy, to get share from the state as well as center. Center already committed and passed it to, but state share, it's difficult if there are opposition parties in place. But fortunately, in India, the setup, the administrative setup is permanent. Normally, those officers who are working in district level, they come to state, then state people come to the center. Yeah. So that continuity on the fundamental level is always there. So how many persons I will be requiring for next 10 years? Like these days we are exercising for 2047, what will be the water sector in India. So their contribution from local level to the central level, we take everybody and calculations are made, summing all those. Yeah. From each and every local unit.
Yeah. Thank you. Robin or Sunshine, do you have any thoughts on this? I mean, I was thinking, Robin, in your case, where you're allowing very micro level management to take place, where they know what the history of previous efforts is right on the ground. Yeah. But does that affect then the ability for the larger managers to do overall broader base planning?
I think actually your question is pretty complex. There's no easy answer because there are many factors that are involved. I don't want to give an answer that would, not consider some of those complexities around it. But I would say whether it's central or decentralized, to some degree you need a top-down buy-in and a visionary to drive it forward. Yeah. All right. You won't have the working level putting their hands up and want change to happen. Yeah. People are resistant to change. Yep. And but you need to overcome that. Yeah. So that's why I was mentioning that you need that top-down, bottom-up. And it's quite a interesting dynamic to manage in a course of, let's say, implementing generative AI in PUB.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
there is a lot of consideration. Cybersecurity, it takes quite a while to jump through a lot of hoops, but then you need to engage the working level to who knows the pain points, the real pain points, and what is it in for them,
Yeah.
at the end of the day,
Yeah.
all right? And that trust and alignment needs to happen that, hey, productivity gains doesn't translate to just, doing more work, but it's really work-life balance, and I get to see my family a bit more.
Yeah.
So that's one example that I would confidently use to answer your question. But there are a lot of points here that I don't think there's a simple answer to it.
Yeah, before we run out of time, Shenshang, did you want to come in on this question? I mean, you're working across different sectors, different stakeholders, and you're doing projects, but yeah.
I am, but I realize that the most two governments that I'm most familiar with are Hong Kong and Singapore. They're both very small.
Yeah.
And so there's not much like central and decentralized. But I could maybe share one example that I understand from China.
Yeah.
So I remember that at a time we were trying to discuss with the Chinese local design institutes, which are the consultants there. We're trying to identify who are the best ones in terms of doing the water treatment supply, water treatment technology. And first, I was just thinking about the big cities like Beijing and Shanghai. Of course, then the LDIs there should be the best ones in this game. But then I realized actually one of the most famous one is actually in Sichuan, where pandas are, and of course that's why they're famous. But I wouldn't imagine that in such a province, their design institute is actually the best. When I speak to those people and look into their track records, what I realize is that they are of course getting less resources comparing with their big brothers in Beijing or Shanghai, but because they have limited local businesses, the people in that particular LDI is very entrepreneurial, and then they try to go out more aggressively because Sichuan is also relatively closer to the border of China. So then they actually go outside of China more aggressively. A lot of the projects that they have are, for example, in the Philippines and also in Malaysia. So that's how, and even in Africa. So that's how they build their track records. And then they also try to collaborate with other contractors operating in elsewhere of the world. So I would say that in this sense, I don't think that the centralized would actually be able to provide a lot of the support at the local level if it is a big country as big as India or as big as in China. And then that's why you would need some local innovation and local entrepreneurship in order for things to innovate.
Yeah, thank you. And that really reinforces then where you'll see those jobs in the innovative sector. Oh, one last question here to wrap up. Yeah.
Thank you. Very interesting discussion. Just a comment.
Yeah.
I think innovation and entrepreneurs will solve the water sector's problem.
Okay.
What the government can do is set an audacious target and let the entrepreneurs address it like Robin.
Right.
But they need the power of government is to provide financial incentives for entrepreneurs to really be innovative and come up with a solution.
Right.
But whatever intellectual property generated must be kept by the private sector because they're taking risk.
Right. Otherwise,
that should be priced in already.
Yeah.
You know, when the U.S. set a target to go to the moon in 1969, it produced integrated circuit. And who provided that?
Who?
Texas Instruments.
Right.
Fast forward, who solved the vaccine issue, COVID? It's private sector.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And that is the real trick here. We're learning about innovation and coming from the private sector, but governments have a role in facilitating that and using it to society's benefits. Quick question. I'm now the last speaker before we conclude because I want to say a couple of things. Is that right, Corinne? Okay, just clarifying. But I do want to say in this last point, in my world, there's a big debate about whether national governments or local governments are the best to deliver and identify and address critical challenges, including the climate crisis. Both sides refer to Singapore as an example. It's a national government and it's also a city-state. And so Singapore, interestingly enough, provides fodder for both in what it does, but we know that we can learn so much from it and what it's done on water policy, including generating these kinds of conversations with researchers and practitioners around common purpose. Around common purpose. And so with that, I did want to just thank a few people. First of all, Cecilia, who's not here, and Corrine, who is here, thank you so much for your efforts on this. Corrine has been involved when EYES was IWP, now the CWP, and has been integral as we've expanded beyond water to entrench and reinforce our water emphasis, as you can see from this very event today. And that's really been grateful. In fact, not just entrenching water, but learning from what IWP did on water and applying it beyond water as well. So very grateful to Corrine and team for all of that. And as well as to the events team, Yvonne and her team. Great. And where's Suming? Is Suming here? Suming? And Suming. Okay. Who's been at IWP, EYES, and elsewhere for a long time and does pretty much everything. And in general, I know I miss people, and also EYES staff in general, but really wonderful, and thanks to all the great people at LKY, SPP, and then finally to our speakers who came from afar and locally as well to share their insights and spark interesting ways forward. So thank you very much. And look forward to the next steps.
And thank you, Ben, too, for moderating this panel and opening this event.
My pleasure.
Thank you.